Welcome to Beardy, Bruce Lee Central.
I get asked about Bruce Lee all the time, and I think Bruce Lee was very unique. Like any other human being, he was human. I did get to see him and watch him and talk to him. And I can tell you that his sidekick, his 𝘽𝙧𝙪𝙧𝙪𝙧 was spectacular.
Yeah.
The best I've ever seen to this day. Much better than me ever was, ever will be, ever could be.
Knock him off, 𝘽𝙧𝙪𝙧𝙪.
Hey everybody, it's Birdie here. What's going on, guys? Okay, you can imagine my shock and surprise when I get this mail from a guy that says he was a close friend of Steven Seagal back in the 60s and 70s, and he was there when Steven Seagal met Bruce Lee, and he saw everything. So I said to the guy, okay, go on, explain exactly what happened here in detail, and that's what he did. So he said that Steven Seagal used to live in Fullerton, California, which is just a few minutes away from Culver City, California, where Bruce Lee bought a house in 1967. And I did my research, and it turns out that is true, guys. Steven Seagal did indeed live in Fullerton, California, which is close by to Culver City, California. And in 1970, Steven Seagal started traveling to Japan, and he was training Aikido in Japan from 1970 to 1972. And in this period, he would travel back and forth from Fullerton, California to Japan. And after a couple of years of doing Aikido in Japan, Steven Seagal thought he was it. He was now the greatest martial artist to ever live. This is according to his friend, right? So he said that his ego was up in the sky, you know. He just thought he was the greatest martial artist ever. Just after a couple of years of doing Aikido in Japan. So while he was in Japan, he saw a Bruce Lee movie for the first time, okay? And he was infatuated with this person, this Bruce Lee. And he started watching more Bruce Lee movies. And his friend basically said that he was in love with Bruce Lee, right? And he started doing some research on Bruce Lee. He wanted to find out who this guy was. And to his surprise, to his shock, it turns out that Bruce Lee was living in Culver City, California, which is close to Fullerton, California, where Steven Seagal was living. So he decided then and there that he was going to pay Bruce Lee a visit the next time he was in California. And that's exactly what he did. He asked his friend if he wanted to join him, and they were going to go over to Bruce Lee's house, basically just knock on his door. Remember, there was no social media or Twitter or Facebook or whatever back in these days. So they were going to go and knock on his door and just pay this guy a visit, talk to him, spar with him, whatever. There was no plan. They just wanted to meet Bruce Lee, okay? So yes, his friend accepted. They said, okay, I'll join you. And the next time he was in Fullerton, California, he went over to Bruce Lee's house and they knocked on his door and there was no answer. So they started going back on the backyard of the house, and that's where they saw Bruce Lee with his friends working out in the backyard. And Steven Seagal went over to Bruce Lee and he introduced himself, etc., etc. And to his friend's surprise, Steven Seagal demanded a sparring match with Bruce Lee then and there. And Bruce Lee and his friends were basically just laughing at this guy. And Bruce Lee was like, you come over to my house just uninvited and just ask for sparring match. I mean, this is I mean, that's not how it works, guys. You can't just come to someone's house like that, okay? And Steven Seagal was adamant, and he didn't want to leave until he had a sparring fight with Bruce Lee, okay? And that's where the fight started, okay? And it was not a sparring match because Bruce Lee wanted to teach this guy a lesson, okay? And his friend said that the fight didn't last long and that Steven Seagal was so messed up, he was so battered and messed up that they had to call an ambulance to come and get Steven Seagal. So that's how bad of a shape he was in after the fight. So I asked him for more detail, and basically all he said was that Bruce Lee was basically just using his kicks. He was basically, his hands were behind his back, and Bruce Lee was only using kicks against Steven Seagal. And that Steven Seagal was battered after a couple of minutes, and that they had to call an ambulance to get and pick up Steven Seagal. And that's basically the end of the story there. Uh, Steven Seagal got demolished, and yeah, there's no more to the story. I asked the guy for more detail, and he said that that's it. And from that day on, Steven Seagal hated Bruce Lee. And that actually explains why Steven Seagal is going around trash talking Bruce Lee all the time, because he got destroyed by this guy. He was probably embarrassed because he thought he was the greatest martial artist to ever live. After doing a couple of years of Aikido in Japan, he thought he was all that, but obviously he was not. So yeah, there we go, guys. Steven Seagal versus Bruce Lee. Who would have thought? I mean, obviously, we have to take this with a grain of salt. I mean, there's no way of proving or disproving any of this ever happened, okay? Like Steven Seagal, he claims he met Bruce Lee. We all know that. But we all know that I also exposed him, that Bruce Lee, I was sure that Steven Seagal never met Bruce Lee. Uh, and to this day, to be honest, I'm not sure if this story checks out or not. Uh, it's like I said, this happened. It's such a long time ago. It's impossible to prove or disprove this. But everything this guy said, his friend, checks out. Like the time period and the location of Fullerton and Culver City, it all checks out. And yes, he did train Aikido in Japan. And yes, Bruce Lee was popular in Japan in those days. So it's logical that Steven Seagal would have seen his first Bruce Lee movie in Japan while he was there training. So I mean, all of this checks out, but in the end of the day, there's no way of proving or disproving this. So, like I said, we have to take this with a grain of salt. But it would explain why Steven Seagal trash talks Bruce Lee all the time, you know, and claiming he also claims Steven Seagal claims that Bruce Lee liked Aikido, and that's not true at all, guys. Bruce Lee was not a fan of Aikido at all. Like he considered implementing some forms of Aikido in Jeet Kune Do, but eventually he went away from it because Aikido was too stagnant of a sport. There's no agility. There's very little movement. It's more like you're using your arms a lot as like leverage and to pivot your opponent, and there's no like fluidity to Aikido. And probably there is fluidity to Aikido if you go to back in time to these early grandmasters of Aikido. They were more agile then than the Aikido you see today. And yeah, like I said, Bruce Lee was not a fan of Aikido at all. So Steven Seagal claiming that Bruce Lee was a fan of Aikido. And not only that, Steven Seagal claimed that he taught Bruce Lee Aikido. I mean, he was that didn't happen. If they ever met, this is what happened, what his friend told me, okay? That he knocked on his door, no one answered the door. They went around to his backyard, and Bruce Lee got angry and he beat his ass. I mean, that's if they ever met, that is the most logical explanation to what happened, what would have happened, okay?
And working together, and I tried to learn from him, and I think he tried to learn from me, and so being able to work with him that day and fight him was a great pleasure for me.
I was going to say, Dan Inosanto, at one stage, Bruce Lee's #1 student. You also...
and teacher.
And teacher. Friends with James 𝘾𝙚𝙧𝙪𝙘 as well, who was one of Bruce Lee's students. Indeed.
That's how I met Bruce Lee, was through James 𝘾𝙗.
Tell me, I was going to ask. So you met Bruce Lee. Tell me about your experiences with Bruce, and what was he like, and how did you get on with him?
You know, I wasn't around Bruce much. He was the kind of guy who kind of would badmouth most, a lot of the other martial artists and martial arts in a kind of a sarcastic way, fun way, which I understood. For some reason, he never had anything bad to say about me. And I was quite interested in Aikido, and he was very nice to me. He knew that I grew up in Asia and that I had a son that was just exactly the same age as Brandon. And when I met Brandon, he had lighter hair, and said, "This is my little Caucasian boy," you know. You know, I thought Bruce was a really great guy, really cool guy, and I thought James 𝘾𝙗𝙧 was a great guy too. And I'm really sorry they're all gone. And when Brandon was killed like that, they called me a few minutes after it happened. It was in Carolina somewhere. They called me in the middle of the night and they said, "We think that he's dead, but the guy shot a blank gun at him. How could he be dead? He's dying. He's you know, severely hurt, maybe dead." And I said, "You will find a projectile in him. You'll find a bullet in him." And they said, "That can't be. You're crazy." And I said, "You will find a bullet in him." And they called me in the morning and they said, "You're amazing." And I said, "Why?" And they said, there was a bullet in him. And I can go through the whole story on what really happened, which most people don't know, but the long and the short is when Brandon passed like that, I didn't sleep for 3 or 4 days.
Wow.
It just reminded me too much of certain things, and the loss of both of them was terrible for me.
Another great actor, one of my favourites, and I know he's one of your favourites as well, Jackie Chan, man who sent me flowers for my 21st birthday, coincidentally. And by the way, you and I share the same birthday, April 10. You were one of the people, and it's a little known fact, who helped Jackie Chan break into America and introduce him to American audiences. Can you tell me about your relationship with Jackie and how that started?
I mean, I've known Jackie for, Jesus, maybe 40 years.
Wow.
I've known him from way back in the early days. I'm not very close with him anymore. I don't really go to Hong Kong or China much anymore. Him, Sammo Hung, a lot of the old, you know, some of this is really maybe not quite fit for, you know, saying out loud on film, but there's an interesting group of folks that, you know, are kind of some in the shadows and some in the light, and I was friends with all those guys for a long time. Haven't seen Jackie for a long time now, but at one time I thought we were kind of good friends, you know.
In an interview you also said once you'd made many great movies, which you have, and said you'd made many, or some, bad movies. Is there one particular film you look back on and you sort of cringe and go, geez, did I really do that?
Unfortunately, there's many. I think, you know, I was looking at an actor the other day on screen, and I was going, holy shit. Can you say shit on this interview?
You can say whatever you like.
Yeah. I said, holy shit, did this guy actually do this? Not only was the movie that bad, but the acting was that bad. And it's a pretty famous actor. And I just said, hey, man, happens to all of us.
Who's the most legitimate Hollywood tough guy, in your opinion? You accept it, of course.
When you say tough guy, do you mean martial artist or just tough guy?
I mean, Stephen, for real, if he was on the street and there was a situation, you wanted this Hollywood guy by your side because he could defend himself. It's that hard to think of a legit one?
Can you think of one?
Michael Jai White.
Can I laugh in your face?
Really?
Yes.
Thoughts on Jean-Claude Van Damme?
Can I laugh in your face?
Chuck Norris?
I mean, Chuck is in his mid-70s. He's probably 76 years old, okay? 75, 76 years old.
Interesting.
So I don't know. I've heard that he's not, you know. So, I mean, I don't really want to get into, on film anyway, you know, who's a tough guy. Do I think Michael is a tough guy? No. Do I think he's a martial artist? No. Do I think Jean-Claude's a tough guy or martial artist? No.
If you were to put together your own ensemble of action stars, your own version of the Expendables, let's say, who would you choose, 3 or 4 actors to be in there with you?
I think they had many great actors in there, you know, that are great action guys. I think this guy Jason Statham, is that
Jason
right?
Statham?
Statham,
Yeah,
is it?
yeah.
It's not Stratham, it's Statham.
Yep.
Jason Statham is a wonderful action guy. Jet Li, fantastic action guy, who, by the way, is a real martial artist.
Yes, great wushu.
And, you know, I mean, I'd never seen him fight, but I would imagine if you would have mentioned his name over those guys, I would have to say, okay, he's a real martial artist and probably can fight.
Dolph Lundgren, Kyokushin karateka, used to be competitive.
Oh, he's a very nice guy. Do I think he's a tough guy and a great martial artist? He's just a great guy, and, you know, but anyway, so, but I'm trying to think of all the guys that were in there. I didn't get to see it, but, you know, Jet Li and, you know, Jason Statham are great guys. Who else was in it?
Dolph Lundgren, Terry Crews, Randy Couture.
Randy's a real fighter.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
You know?
Of course, Bruce Willis and Arnie, we know both aren't real fighters, but great actors.
They're great actors.
And Sly Stallone.
Yeah, you got all those great actors there.
Yeah.
Oh man, this is beyond hilarious. Kentaro Seagal, Steven Seagal's firstborn son, was born in 1975, 2 years after Bruce Lee died. And Steven Seagal himself was a teenager when Bruce Lee died. And he didn't even start acting until the late 80s, okay? Steven Seagal was just a kid at the time. Just a kid living in California, fighting and training karate at this karate dojo. That's it. That's all he was. Just a teenage guy training karate. So why the fuck would the likes of Bruce Lee and James Coburn and Steve McQueen hang out with this kid? Okay, well, this doesn't need any more commentary. You can just see for yourself that this guy is obviously lying out of his but that's nothing new. Steven Seagal is notoriously known for just making up lies and talking. So yeah, we'll leave it at that.